I would think most of the time people are typically not voting for the person they want. They're more likely voting against the other person.
That's sad. It really is.
It is
It's
sad. I
sad.
know. It is sad. Yeah, crazy. But anyways, this is boring right now, actually.
Okay.
So let me tell you something, Elon. I heard Elon Musk say something, and I got a little bit like convicted. So he was talking about first principles and solving world problems and all this other sort of stuff. And he was saying that there's a lot of really smart people out there trying to solve problems like how to get people to click on email links. And he was kind of, you're bad. He didn't say you're bad, but he's like, what I wish you would do is take all that brain power and actually solve real problems that would move humanity forward. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. This is where we discuss current events, personal growth, and any other random topic that crosses our minds. Our goal is to have a meaningful discussion that help us to see the topics we discuss more clearly. Our hope is we can help you expand your self-awareness, develop your critical thinking, and learn to be less reactive to the world around you. And most importantly, remember, be curious. If you like what you hear, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any feedback, please leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. Chris.
Scott.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
This is 45,
Episode 45, yes. And unfortunately, I missed out last week. We couldn't do last week's episode, and I do apologize for that, but I am trying to get up to speed at my new job, and it is taking way more time than I had hoped, so.
Always takes more time, Chris. So we had a client way back when, 15 years ago, and he said the general rule of thumb is it's always going to take twice as long and cost twice as much as you first anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I try to go off of. Anytime anyone gives me a number, I always have to pad it with, what I'll call realism.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's always real world friction. There's always friction in everything.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who overcompensates by adding extra time and cost and everything into things, and quite often that doesn't go well with the management. They want me to have numbers within like a 3% error, and I'm adding 10% in there and the like. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other problem in itself. I mean, then maybe you need to build systems that can get to 3% error.
Well, yeah, that's a different problem. That's usually not.
I know.
It's usually not the head of the project. That's the one who chooses what resources they always get.
Easier said than done. I know.
Yes.
I
Management
know.
has their opinions on what resources you can have to do things. That's
always.
That's always the
Everybody's
case.
always got their opinion.
Yep.
And and at some level, from their perspective, it's right because they have a different set of constraints than you do.
Yeah, and one of the things to think about is, in some ways, it's their job to ask you to do the hard thing. Really. If everything was easy for you to do, if you had everything the way you wanted it to get it done, maybe you're not the right person for that job. Is that, or maybe you're not having a good enough challenge?
No, exactly right. I mean, because that's the whole idea is they pay you, hopefully lots of money, for you to solve hard problems for them.
Yeah, and if it's not hard for you to do, then you need to find a harder problem to solve.
Maybe. I mean, well, maybe. No, I'm going to push back against that because we can't, it's been a while since we argued. But it might. See, remember, it's always the person that's paying you, it's their value, not yours. It could be super easy for you, but of tremendous value to them.
Okay. From their perspective.
Yeah, from their perspective, right.
From your perspective, in my mind, in my value structure, if you're doing something that you can do, without even thinking about it, without any effort at all, then you really need to ask yourself why you're doing that, right? Is it because I would think that, barring other considerations, you want to get better, you want to grow, you want to, you want change, positive change in your life, you want personal growth. That doesn't have to be professional growth, so that's why I say depending on other things in your life. Maybe that's having more time to volunteer, to help people out, to help homeless people, to do whatever it is, in which case that's the value that's the growth you're chasing. But generally, what I'm thinking about, if your job is so easy you can do it in your sleep, then where are you growing?
Well, maybe you're growing your bank account, right? Which is not a bad thing to do.
Okay. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, but there's a you're missing the personal growth element in that, which I think I don't know. I think that's one of those things that we just value is the idea that you're growing individually in some manner, not just the
Well,
dollar figures.
not everybody shares that belief. In fact, I'd say the vast bulk of people don't.
And that's why they're idiots.
Well,
No, it's honestly,
it's a different perspective, Chris, right? Different people place value on different
yes,
things.
agreed. So what is it that brings value or meaning to you yourself, right? Is what it comes down to, right? And if you say it's just money, I don't like that. But if you really believe that and that's where you've landed, I guess that's what it is.
Well, and you know, it's never just all one thing. But there's times in people's lives, look, money is the most important thing right now because I've got needs, right? I've got 6 kids and 17 cats outside and they need food. So right now I just need money. Maybe later when you got more money, now it's an issue of time, right?
So
Which is what really wealthy people,
so
they always start
again,
with. Like,
again, you're basically saying my argument that there's something beyond the job that's important to you, and that's why you're willing to settle on on not growing your abilities within the professional world because you've got other responsibilities that you need to handle.
yeah, and you need different resources.
So it's not
for sure.
just you want money; it's that the money is the means to the other thing,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right.
right? And that's what I'm getting at is what is this other thing? So that's why I'm saying if something's too easy, you know, uh, somewhere in your life there should be some growth. Is what I'm getting at, right? And when you when you tell me your job's so easy you can do it in your sleep, then I would assume somewhere else in your life you're doing something to grow.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, it could be volunteer work. I mean, it could
Yeah.
be a million things, right? I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought you were tying just. See, initially, as always, like, as soon as I call you on it, then you start expanding your constraints.
You
a
didn't
little
hear
bit.
me say barring other conditions in that first thing. I actually put that in there.
Did you?
Yes, I did. Because
Well, maybe that's called
I knew
selective
there were
hearing.
things outside of jobs and money that would be considered growth. So I don't want to say
Okay.
everyone has to get better at their job. Everyone has to have growth in their job. I didn't want to say it that has to be professional. That's why I said barring other things.
Okay, fair enough. If you said that, then I'll give you a hall pass on
You,
this
you
one. But
see,
the reason I said it is
again,
because you're just usually wrong, right? Most
again,
of the
it's
time.
you need to maybe you need new Q-tips to clean out your ears and hear these things that
I
I'm
could.
saying.
Maybe I need hearing aids. Who knows, actually. Very possible,
Just crank
Chris.
up the volume on the thing.
Very, very possible. Speaking of hearing and ears and things like that, Chris, I made the coolest purchase maybe I've ever made. Well, hang on. I'm not going to take it that far. So I bought a pair of iPod Pro 3 earbuds. You know, the
Is
white
that the newest one?
ones? They're the $250 ones.
Uh-huh.
Man, oh man, Chris, they are something spectacular.
Why?
Because you basically put them in. Well, for one, they just fit and they're super comfortable. You just forget you're wearing them. They're wireless, so you don't have the goofy cord coming down, and they seal perfectly. So literally, they've got this technology. It's noise canceling, which has been around for a long time, but these just work really good. I mean, literally in an average room or even a noisy fan or something like that, you put them in and you hear just silent. You don't really hear anything, and it's just fascinating how well they work.
Okay.
They work on 2 principles. One, by they literally just seal, and the other thing, they have little microphones on them that pick up the sound and inverts it, right? So it pulls it out that way. So they just work really, really good.
Inverts. You mean it puts the canceling wave out? So yeah. So
Yeah.
So
inverts
it
So it's a
it reads
combination of
reads
two.
the background noise, generates the counteracting wave, so that it ends up nulling itself out.
Yeah, and it seals as well. So it's usually they got at least 2 different strategies.
I think my noise cancellation headphones are the big ones. They go by covering the ear, and then secondarily they do some kind of a muting, but I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's doing the noise cancellation in the sense of outputting a contradictory wave or whatever it is.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you just
but-
invert the signal.
The thing I wear, I don't have it on right now, is the bone induction that goes through the bone right in front of the ear.
Yeah.
I like that because it keeps my ears open, so I can still hear people talk. I can still do all that stuff. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. You could pick that up. So I have like some shooting ones, little earplugs that are awesome because they mute the sound, but you have microphones that pick up everything else. So it's like you can literally hear Wait, so they're hearing aids and hearing protection simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
very,
so
very
so the
cool.
way these would work is I could wear earplugs, traditional just foam earplugs, and put these on and still hear because it's going through the bone as opposed to.
Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I like those a
interesting.
lot, except if you're in a really loud background environment, like you're standing near a highway or something like that. They're not loud
Yeah.
enough for that because they're not going directly into the ear canal.
Okay, yeah. And I know that these things used for shooting, just because it's so loud, they use them all the time in OSHA and really. And it's crazy because if you're exposed to like really loud sounds for an extended period of time, that's exhausting. I don't know if you've ever had that or not, but you're worn out just from the hearing.
I don't think I've ever gone shooting that long. It's usually, I'd go plinking up in the mountains with my dad when I was a kid. So
Well, I'm not saying just gunfire, anything loud. It could be around a machine, a table
a concert,
saw,
a
a
loud, a
circular
loud concert can be quite,
search.
yeah.
Yeah, anything like that.
So, but the ones I'm talking about, the more expensive ones, they're waterproof and you can swim with them on
Oh, how cool is that?
because it's
There you
bone
go.
induction, right? And you can wear your regular earplugs or whatever that you would use while swimming.
Wow,
And then so you could actually listen to stuff while you're swimming, which is kind of an interesting thing.
that is pretty darn cool, actually. Yeah. Yeah, and that really wouldn't work with the big foam ones that cover your ear because they would just get in the way and
Yeah.
create drag. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But that's
pretty
cool.
cool.
So you're happy with them? Are you're using them to talk to AI? Is that what you're doing?
I do. So basically, what I do is I'm out here working and I'm talking to AI, and then a new feature in Grok. I don't know if it's in the heavy plan or if it's in all of Grok. Is that now you can actually set it up, and it will take like a picture like every second. So
Oh,
not only can you talk to it, but it has a visual sort of response. So you could be sitting there soldering or learning some new skill, and it'd be like, okay, go a little slower, or feed a little more solder into it. It is. This has all just happened in the past month. So
that's
this
cool.
AI thing,
That's data
yeah,
intensive as hell, but that's cool.
data intensive as hell. But just so now Grok can officially see, which is so interesting. And another feature that I have not tested, we talked last time, that you can upload up to a 10-minute video and it doesn't transcribe it to Word. It literally sees and interprets all sorts of expressions and gathers much more meaning.
So you were talking about that last time. I want to learn more about that because I think that's one of the limitations I find is the fact that everything you do right now with most of them gets translated into text and then it reads the text. Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why singing and songs and tonality and stuff don't come across. You could yell at ChatGPT and it doesn't know you're yelling at it.
yeah, right, right, right. It picks up just the words. I think some of them, I can't get a straight answer because AI sometimes it says stuff and it says it's so confident that it's wrong. Sorry, but it says what it does do is it will calculate the time between words, and so then it kind of knows how much spacing between words, so it's not just pure text. So it can gain a little more information that way. But I don't know if that's true or not. I have no idea. It says it's true. AI makes up stuff like left and right.
All the time, yeah. And
Oh, it's a
oh gosh, yeah, I've got to call it out. Although I find when I'm just doing kind of thought exercises, I don't care as much about the accuracy of what it's saying because it's more just to get my mind working. But when I'm doing
yeah,
research, I have to get it to validate back to the source. And often
yeah,
its source is not the real source. You've got to get it to go deeper and deeper to actually find the source.
yeah, yeah. And I've been doing a lot of multi AI work, so I mean, it recommended a workflow which I have not tried yet, and that is use Perplexity, because basically it's Google with sources, right? It's a good first thing. Then you feed that into Grok 4 Heavy, that'll then summarize it and come up with a summary of that information. And then you take and feed that into Claude, that will write a real professional corporate kind of report based upon that. So it's recommending that particular workflow. So who knows if it works or not?
Yeah, no, all you need to do is set up an agent flow and have it do all that.
Yeah.
But instead of you going to three separate LLMs, you just build what is it? Not the agents themselves. What is it? The controller, the manager of the agents, and you just interact with the manager and say, do this, and have it go to all your LLMs through API.
Yeah, I'm gonna start playing with that because I know with the new Claude, I can't remember what it's called right now. The 4.5 that just came out a week or two ago.
4.5, yeah, huh? Well,
What's Sonic, right? I think Sonic 4.5.
yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Um,
Is that right? Yeah, Sonnet
It's
4.5.
really good at writing code, from what I
Well,
understand. So, anyways,
yeah, it is good at code, and particularly I've been playing with it with the Claude Code download,
yeah.
and I think I told you I set up some MCP servers and I had it working connected to. I have it connected to
Mhm.
my Obsidian, so I don't even write notes in Obsidian anymore. It does it for me. I say, okay, here's the 5 things we talked about today. Make notes for these 3, and it will go create notes in Obsidian for me.
Tell me about that, because since we met last time, I'm learning how to take better notes. And so tell me about that workflow. How does it work?
So the first thing I did, I think I told you a while back that I was getting tired, or I was getting hard to manage all my different chats that I have,
Yeah.
right? So I created a prompt where I just do one chat a day and I cover all my topics in one chat.
Okay.
Or as much as possible. Obviously, if I hit a context limit, but I rarely do. But I'll sit there and say, okay, this is the daily log for October 17th, 2025. And then I've got a
Okay.
prompt that actually has an output, a specific output that I want, right? Here's what we talked about,
Okay.
here's whatever. Yeah. And that is mapped to a particular note template that I have in Obsidian. That's like my daily,
Okay. I
that's
gotcha.
my daily note. And so what happens is
Gotcha.
throughout the day, I talk to chat. I do a research on the Constitution. I think about IT and tech and all that kind of stuff. And I do all those conversations. And at the end of the day, I say, okay, it's time for our end of the day recap. What do we talk about today? And it will
Gotcha.
list everything we talked about. I say, okay, make new notes for numbers 1, 3, and 5, and make sure that they're cross-referenced in the note. And then I say create my end of day daily log, and it does that. And then it actually goes to the note, puts in all those things we did today, puts in the daily log at the end, which is a summary of everything we did, and then creates separate new notes for the ones I told it to make notes for. And now all those get created in Obsidian directly.
And is it linked between them? Does it create the links as well?
Yes. Because that's just markup language, right? Or markdown language, right? It's just basically putting it in brackets in Obsidian. So all it needed to know is it needs to know to put it down in markdown language, and it works fine.
And then, so you're literally creating a second brain that links those.
Yeah.
But what about if you want to link to things that weren't done that day?
Well,
Maybe
then I
like
go
two
into
weeks.
Obsidian, or actually, what I could do is verbally through Claude say, "Hey, I need you to look up notes on this topic. What notes do I have?" And it'll do it. But then the interface becomes what I'd consider a little clunky because I can process the cards in Obsidian in mass faster than it can. Right? It can read all the data and do the research through it. But if I want to do research, say, "Hey, go through all my Obsidian notes and find out every reference I ever made to ChatGPT." Right? Even ones I didn't cross link. Now, Obsidian will do that, but it'll do that for me and it can put some context to it. Find the ones where I was talking about whatever, right? Hallucinations. And it'll kind of filter through that. So, in some ways, particularly for creating things that are standardized for me and creating notes, it'll do that live, which is great. Um, I still think, if you're going to do a lot of research in your own notes, it's better to go into Obsidian yourself and do it. But if you're just talking about daily interactions, capturing things that happen throughout the day, this MCP that I set up was really cool. And it was easy to do because it's on, these MCPs, people put them on GitHub. And you just need to put in your API, put it into your MCP server, and it's doing it. So I set one up for that. I'm in the middle of setting one up for a couple of other websites. I'm creating one for LinkedIn and for Meetup to be able to pull like meetings and events that are there. I think it'd be really cool to get these up and running to where basically I don't have to touch these things. Right now I can read my email and read my calendar, but I can't write and send email from Claude. I still have to cut and paste it into to email. I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't want to use the default functionality of the Gmail connection for Claude. I'm going to create a separate MCP server that actually has the ability to write and send for me. So I never have to write an email again. I can just dictate the whole thing, have it write it for me, and send it for me.
That's pretty darn cool. So here's something I've been struggling with. It's funny, like if you talk to AI, especially I use Grok almost exclusively now, and it can go back and pick up patterns. It says how many times you loop through things. I mean, it knows all this sort of stuff. And so I was kind of futzing around with like what my IQ is and everything. And so basically, it says I'm plenty smart enough. The IQ is not a problem. It goes what the problem is, where you can gain because your IQ is pretty much fixed. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. I think there's like a fixed IQ, and then there's one that's a floating IQ. I can't remember what the exact language it used for it. That floats based upon what mood you're in, if you're tired, if you're distracted. I mean, and so you can never go higher than your fix. It gave an example of like, that's your V8 engine. That's the max speed you could ever go. But there's all sorts of reasons you could go slower than that. Maybe bad fuel, or you don't eat well, or whatever it is. And so it tells me that I end up looping a lot. And if I would stop with the loops, that could really speed things up dramatically. And I think that makes sense to me. Although sometimes I loop to gain understanding. The second thing that it told me is, and I'm thinking, Chris, if I could take better notes, because I forget stuff. And then I keep going over and over until it kind of gets burned in. And so it's teaching me how to take notes like an engineer would, which is really fascinating. And they're way less than I ever thought. So down the road, I'd love to talk more about how to leverage whatever this thing is called, become more effective, more efficient.
Is it the quality of your notes, or is it just the practice of taking notes that you're missing?
Well, most of the time I don't do them.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I tried, I tried to make a note-taking app that would give me a summary at the end of the day. I tried to do all that stuff. But one thing I realized is I've already got a tool that can do a lot of that with any of these LLMs. So when I give it that prompt, I keep that chat open in on wherever I've got Claude, and I'll open up that chat and I'll say, I got a new thought. Here's boom, 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 boom. Or I got an idea. Or, hey, remind me to follow up on this thing I want to order on Amazon, or whatever the heck it is, right? Yeah. You know how often it is that I'll think, oh, I got to go find that thing on Amazon, and then get sidetracked with something else on Amazon, and then I forgot what I was originally going to go look at until 2 days later, and you go, oh yeah, I was supposed to go look at that, right? So literally, I'm trying to lower the friction to get my stuff into a system as fast as possible. And I got to get just enough data to reopen the mental pathway that got me there in the first place, right? It's very frustrating when you write yourself a note and you know that it's an important note, but you can't remember what the note was supposed to trigger. So there needs to be enough there to trigger that initial thought. So that's what I'm trying to do with Claude, is to say, okay, and then at the end of the day, say, okay, make me a summary, let's put that into it, and let's, and we'll use that to populate tomorrow's to-do list or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I'm starting to realize, and it's teaching me the fact that by taking good notes, organizing them so you can recall them, which is the problem you were talking about. Literally, this is not just a tiny little thing. This is not like bumping like a 10 or 20% increase. This is like magnitudes of order more effective, like maybe 10, 20, 30 times more effective.
Scott, let's say you have 2 thoughts a day worth noting down, and you put them down onto note cards in Obsidian. And then you've got whatever random crap you're doing every day. And that you capture that in a day end log, right? Yeah. That's 3 notes you would put into Obsidian that even if you don't cross-reference them, you can search through them later using the Obsidian search tools. But imagine later you go into let's say you do what I did and you set up Grok to talk to Obsidian, and you tell it, hey, you know what? Go in and search. Do a search for the word Toastmasters and tag everything in there, tag it so it's cross-referenced as Toastmasters, and suddenly it'll go through and it'll rewrite all your notes and add the Toastmasters link in there. You don't have to go do that yourself, and that is to me just an amazing way to edit your knowledge base. Right? Yeah. Say 2 years ago I didn't even think about this. Now I'm going to start, cross-referencing all my Toastmasters note cards, or I'm going to start cross-referencing all my Claude, or my MCP server, or whatever the heck it is that's going into your head. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hey, speaking of Toastmasters, it pains me to say this, but you did a really good speech today.
Thanks. That was written mostly with Claude.
Yeah.
So I was actually in Perplexity last week, and I forgot what it was. Something probably on YouTube, more than likely, triggered me to think. Yeah, of course that's semantics. Semantics is the core. If you and I aren't arguing the same thing, why are we even having a discussion?
Well, there's a good reason not to, but that's where we always trip on, is we're always arguing the definition of something.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you're 90% in alignment on a definition, it's much harder to figure out what that 10% difference is and how that's impacting the differences in your thinking.
Yeah. Unless it really matters. There's certain things where language needs to be precise and everybody has to agree on it. I know when I was talking to David Marquet, he was a captain of a submarine. And he said, when you would shoot a torpedo, that you really had a very particular language. So you'd say shoot two or shoot one, and shit one or shit two. Those were different. You don't want people. Oh, that means shoot. They go, whoa, sorry, sorry, Princess Cruz, you're now dead. Everybody on there's dead. But anyways, that's a little exaggeration. But the point is like are in medical applications, like you need to speak very precisely.
Well, and that's why usually within a profession, your lingo, you all learn the lingo, you all learn what it means, and that means you're very efficient and capable of getting stuff done because you're all aligned on the language. But when we start to have discussions amongst different people with different educations and different backgrounds, the same word doesn't mean the same thing to everyone.
No, it could mean kind of the same thing, but it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the idea, right? I mean, the idea, I eat healthy. What does that mean? To one person, eating healthy might just mean I don't eat meat. To someone else, it might mean I eat raw vegetables every day and I never cook anything and it's all organic and what does that mean? And I realized that so next time I hear someone say you're arguing semantics, I'm going, good. Let's figure out what you mean before we start to have a real argument on this thing.
Well, and that's always the default question for me now moving forward is like, what do you mean when you say blank, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like I was thinking, what's the extension of this? If we want to extend it into all the arguments that go on in America today, it's like if I see you have certain characteristics that I associate with a particular identity, or in my mind, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're a conservative, you're a liberal, whatever. If I have a certain set of things, and I automatically put you in that group because one thing is from that group, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm missing the fuzzy edges. I don't know your background. I don't know,
no.
I don't know how much money you have, what kind of job you have, what kind of education you have. I don't know what your stance is on all on the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, any of those things. And yet I assume, oh, well, I've put you in this group. This group is like this. So it's the same thing. Now it's a semantic thing in your head. You're stereotyping someone to fit into a particular group. And you're not, in fact, realizing that they may only be 70% in alignment with that group or, whatever. Yeah, right. And that's a huge problem is, again, but it takes mental effort. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to understand is to accept that other people might actually be smart, intelligent, and have come to their conclusions that you disagree with. It takes more intelligence or more cognitive effort on your part to do that. So I think we're all getting cognitively lazy, and it's not just because AI is there to do our thinking for us. It's because we just don't want to go through the reps of thinking. The mental reps.
That's how your brain works. Your brain fundamentally just wants to simplify because it's a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of processing power to really think.
Let's save the power for survival, not for other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, running from a bear, whatever it happens to be.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So over the next few podcasts, I'd really like to practice this note-taking thing because I'm. Well, let me first of all, do you agree that taking good notes and organizing them so you can recall them can truly have that much leverage?
I think for people like us who really have a lot of thoughts that occur, if we were to start to organize those thoughts, and writing down is the best way to do that, that would help a lot. I think, people who journal, whether it's for emotional purposes or intellectual purposes or what, I think all are better off in the fact that they've just put some level of effort into organizing their thinking.
Yeah, because it keeps you from looping. And this is the same thing AI said I did. You tend to loop and loop and loop. And he goes, what I want you to do is I want you to take that loop and create a straight line. Just go A to B. Don't circle around 27 times. Just go straight to B.
So for this speech that I did today, I was driving to a client yesterday. It was an hour in the car on the way there. I came up with the idea for the speech last week, and then I took the outline and I wrote the speech in the car with AI, with Claude, talking to Claude. And we were going over, and I was getting deep. I actually came up with 3 other speech ideas in the process of writing the speech, that were kind of in the same vein. But it does a really good job of this. But I'm like, okay, I told it, remember that idea. Put a pin in that. I want that to be another topic for a speech. And let's put another one in there. And let's put another one in. And I had it working, that way to help me kind of think through or to remember these ideas. Because,
Yeah.
When you're going down one chain of thought and suddenly this great idea comes up, but you don't want to get derailed from this thought, if you don't
Right.
note it somewhere, you're going to forget it.
Almost certainly. Yep. 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 Exactly. Wait. So you were talking to Claude. So Claude's got a voice mode.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, I haven't even played with it. I got to go try
Oh,
that
they
out.
all have a voice mode. I think Grok's is the most fun.
Yeah.
I think Claude's okay. I wish it spoke a little faster, but I wish that for all of them. None of them can speak as fast as I want. And I had to tell it to kind of cut back on its responses. It was getting a little long-winded.
I'm constantly trimming it back. Constantly.
But the other thing, though, is that I have not been able to prove that that Grok can do, but you might be able to do because you're on the expensive plan, is to set up MCP servers. Because Claude, because you can download Claude code and run Claude code on your locally on your system, you can run the MCP server locally on your system. And so what I do is I actually run my MCP server is running on my laptop, and it connects to Obsidian, which is on my laptop. Then I'm trying to figure out how to connect it to LinkedIn online. I've got the API. I just got to get it to work. Same thing with Meetup. You sign up for those companies, and you get the API to developer API or whatever to interact with them. But I mean, someone out there has already done the work for that and you can find them on GitHub all over the place for all these apps, and you can connect them all. It's really, honestly, I'm so impressed with how easy it is to do.
What's the difference in speaking to Claude versus Grok?
Okay. Performance-wise, I felt like Claude waited a little bit longer to respond to me, which let me get a little further in my thinking before it interrupted me. And I always get frustrated with the Grok because it tries to answer fast.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is I start yelling at Grok because I tell it, shut up and let me finish my comment. And obviously those other settings that Grok does, the unhinged and the romantic and the argumentative, all those different modes you can do, those are fun and impressive to play with. And they kind of, in my mind, they push the limits of, I'll say creativity. I'm not really sure they are really more creative, but because they've focused in on a particular context, they feel like they're more creative in their own little context bubble.
Yeah, right.
But overall, I would say the output, if I wanted to look at the output, I think Grok is a little better at going towards less or more alternative kind of options, right?
Yeah.
It's easier for Grok to go away from the mainstream and give you some of the edge stuff. So that's why when you're doing your health journey stuff, I think it's probably the better tool for that. But Claude will get there. It just takes another iteration on your prompting.
I gotta do that. So what do you just have the Claude app or on your iPhone?
So I've got Chat, Claude, Grok, Gemini, everything but the Chinese ones I've got on my phone.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I know I chat with ChatGPT, and it's okay, but it's just not as good as Grok. It doesn't have, because I think it's running on a inferior model. It's running on 4.0 is what it tells me. It's not running on the latest 5 for speed, principally for speed. So
I tried the thing you were talking about asking it health recommendations and the like, and I found when I tried both Claude and Grok on that, I thought Grok was more willing to answer my questions without trying to caveat it every time. So the Grok response always says, I'm not a doctor, blah, blah, blah. It always says that, right? But then it would give me that kind of alternative medicine answer, I guess you would call it. Whereas Claude would do that, but again, it would take an extra pump, saying, hey, I understand this is the situation. I want you to look into the more alternative viewpoints on this and give me more recent viewpoints. You had to be a little bit more prescriptive in your prompting.
Because it's more polished, it's more corporate.
It's more corporate.
I love that.
So
it's very polished, and so that's why I kind of like using both. I like Grok because you get the raw, rough, and then Claude sort of smooths it out.
And I have not been as impressed with Perplexity in all honesty.
I haven't even really used Perplexity hardly at all, and I'm paying for it. I think I'm just going to cancel it
what
or use it
I'm
when
not paying for it, but I've been using it. So I've been using Claude is my number one favorite, and it's the one I
Okay.
use for this day-to-day kind of logging. I also have the same daily log set up for chat. I use the same prompt for both of them, and it works fine.
Good.
Chat I find to be a little more clunky in the interface of
Okay.
doing it. I have not tried it with Grok. Basically, because Chat and Claude are the ones that I pay for. No, I don't pay for any of the other ones. Perplexity, I just don't find its searches are that more meaningful. Although one thing I found out is Claude is getting a little bit. It's not searching the internet by default as much as it was before. I'm wondering if if it's too much CPU or whatever compute to do that, because for a long time you used to have to say, okay, go search the internet and find this, right? Because it will
Yeah.
answer what it knows, and what it knows is nope, that's not true. And then you say nope,
Yeah.
go check. I forgot what I was talking about. Something had happened in the news, and they said that's not true. And I said, look it up in the news. It's do research. They
Yeah.
said, yep, you're right, it's
Yeah.
true. And I'm like, hey, why didn't
Yeah.
you look at the internet in the first place? Was my first thought.
Interesting. Is that through voice mode or through the typing?
So that would have been through typing, but I actually dictate. So when I'm on the laptop,
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
dictate and then I read the response because I can read it much faster than
Yeah.
it will. In the car, I will. I really don't want to read the phone, so I will go listen to the response in that point.
Gotcha. Right. Um, yeah, that's fascinating. And I think what I'm going to do one of these days is just sign up for a $30 account for Grok because I want to know, because what I don't know if there's a significant difference between the $300 and the $30 invoice. But I don't know actually.
Because I've
But
got
I
the
will tell
free
you
one,
what-
and it works. I mean, I do run up against the limits quite often on it, though.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I never live. Apparently mine's unlimited. One thing I have been doing recently, because it told me to do this, is that give a really well thought through prompt, let Grok heavy grind on it for 5 or 10 minutes, output at that, and then open that thread up on your phone and then go into chat and then you can talk about it. And that has been a really good workflow. That's really interesting. So
So,
it's like, man, all these little things.
what is your goal when you're prompting? Are you trying to get like really good single prompts, or do you? I mean, how do you think about stuff when you prompt? What's the goal of the prompt?
Most of the time I use it for learning.
Okay.
So, for instance, like right now, I'm learning about AI. So I just spent a lot of time chatting. So now that my foot works, I can walk up and down my driveway and I just chat with it because the weather's out. So I'm learning about. It really wants me to go down for AI to build physical hardware. He said you'll learn AI much faster, and then with the hardware go into physics, could go into the first principles of physics. Because when you start doing that, then you'll have from the ground up. So when you start running into software, you'll really understand what's happening. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go down that road.
I really don't like talking to any of them. Again, I told you, I often can't finish a thought because I get broke. I think while I talk, and that slows me down, and
Yeah.
it interrupts me. Or the responses, since it's not a human that I have to wait to listen to, I want it to speak faster and get the information out. Because quite often, its response, I only care about the first paragraph at most, right?
Then just in Grok, just tell it like, only give me 20 words.
So what I really would like to do is to be able to, maybe I need a pair of those glasses that have the display built in, so that I could
Yeah.
read the response directly, and so I could
Oh.
still talk to it, but because the
that's-
input method is a problem. Right? I need to be able to ramble a little bit in my thinking, because unlike breaking down a prompt and saying, here's the first question, get some output. Oh, here's the next question, get some output. Here's the next question. I really have almost like a chain of consciousness where I'm saying, this is what I'm thinking. These are the things that I'm concerned about. These are the current mainstream viewpoints on this. These are the people who have kind of the more alternative viewpoints on this. I want to explore, the differences between these two viewpoints, and I want the pros and the cons listed out. And I just go on like that for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then-
that's definitely text.
Yeah.
Text based. That's like a Grok
Yeah.
heavy thing.
Yeah, and so then when I send it to it, then it goes, oh, interesting idea, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's what the mainstream thinks. Here's what the alternatives thinks. And I say, okay, I need more. I need you to give me references. I need you to blah, blah. I'll tell me all that kind of stuff. And so with me, it's half research to learn, and half of it is for me to refine the way I think on a topic. Like, what do I know about this
Mhm.
topic? Why,
Yeah.
why do I think of this about this topic? And like one of the things I don't think I told you about this. One of the things that has occurred to me a lot is I worry that a lot of the strife we have around the world, and particularly here as well, is based upon wealth inequality and the growing the growing speed of wealth inequality in America. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just a basics. Then, so I often I see that in places that I wouldn't have thought of that before.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I was wondering, well, when in our history, U.S. history, have we had wealth redistribution in the past? When have we done it, right? And then when in our past, given we're generally a capitalist society in viewpoint, when have we taken on socialist viewpoints or communist viewpoints in the past? And so when you think about it, Social Security is a socialist plan, right? So,
Yeah, right.
so I said, well, how did America get to a point where people were willing to vote for that, right? And of
Yeah.
course, that's right after the Depression. But one of the things, have you ever heard of the bonus army?
Mhm.
So I didn't know this, and here comes, I think it was Grok that was mentioning the bonus army, and I'm like, what is the bonus army? After World War One, the veterans all were promised bonuses, and in the 20s we had the Great Depression, and they were all poor, so they all wanted their bonuses early, right? They were
Gotcha.
supposed to get them in 1945. They wanted them earlier than that. So in the 30s, they marched on Washington, wanting to get their bonus early, and Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI, head of the FBI or whatever, and I don't know how they arranged this, but basically they sent in the military. So Eisenhower and MacArthur tear gassed and attacked the rioters, and in the process, I don't know if veterans died, but several people died, several children died, and
Oh, boy.
basically America got pissed off that they were treating their veterans this way, and
Yeah.
and so there was enough impetus. And the news cycle was long enough that they were able to pass legislation for things like Social Security and the like, right? And I'm like, I'd never heard of this. I never heard that the U.S. military had gone in against veterans of World War One. And I was
Yeah.
like, so what would it take in today's world to kind of piss off Americans so much that we'd be willing to accept something that seems very against our beliefs in general, right? Socialism in general, I don't think is, although I think some people do believe in it. It's just, I think generally it doesn't tie to our core beliefs.
Yeah, that's funny. You spend your time thinking about this stuff. I only think about stuff that's going to benefit me. I guess you're a better human being than I am, actually.
Well, do we ever have to really question that?
I guess not. Apparently not, Chris.
Scott, the thing is that it's true. I mean, I rarely think about how I use that, except to use it in a speech or to have a conversation. Another thing that I went deep in was, and this is going to be a future speech, is about this thing right here,
The phone?
your smartphone.
Yeah, it's going away eventually. Yeah.
No, my thing is, how many of you are for slavery?
Yeah.
And of course, no one's going to say they're for slavery. It goes, well, what do you think of indentured servitude? People in the past, like during the Industrial Revolution, when 7-year-olds were indentured until they were 18 years old and lost hands and fingers working in factories. It goes, it exists today, right? Foxconn, who makes the iPhone, they have basically indentured service, and basically though every smartphone company basically has something that you might equate to modern day indentured servitude.
Right.
And so then the question is, what are the labor practices of all these companies, and are any of them better than others? And just like now, when we look at a company, we say, oh, are they green? Are they taking care of the environment? Are they using nuclear power? Are they using conflict minerals? There's all these ways to judge a company now. There are a couple companies out of Europe that have pretty good ratings when it comes to how they treat labor. So if it's something you're worried about, if you want to actually show that I guess you have principles where you apply your money, that's something to think about. And some of these companies, they're Android phones, but they call them their de-Googled Android phones because they don't track anything you do. They're totally private. So that's the other thing, right? All this tech is now tracking everything you do, and if you're really worried about privacy, there's options out there. So I find it really interesting that I don't know why I was thinking about modern day slavery, and I ended up with iPhones
Well,
and
because that's the pattern. The pattern is how do you treat people, right?
yeah.
It's like it's like ideally, if I could see your pattern, I'd see you don't like when there's too much disparity of power, right? Because it's unfair, inherently unfair.
Well, the things that trigger me, and not trigger me, that trigger my thinking on this is like I'll be watching a debate. Usually it's an argument, not a debate, but 'cause people don't debate very well anymore. But I'll be watching someone or discussion, and someone will make a comment of whatever's trending either on either side of the aisle right now, and I'll think about that and go, why are you using that argument? Why
Yeah,
are you saying that? Why are you thinking that? So first of all, when you make a comment, I'm like, do both sides of the aisle or do both people in the debate believe what you're saying? Do they
yeah,
accept that as fact? And if not, then I have to say, well, then why are you saying it? Is the
yeah,
audience gonna respond? Because that's your second thing. I either win the argument, or I win the audience, or I do both. Right? So does
yeah,
the
right.
audience believe what you say? And then if
Yeah,
not, I'm like, but what's the reason why you use that argument? Where's that coming from? What value
yeah.
structure? What principle? What idea?
It came from some talking point that
Yeah,
they just put in their head that they haven't thought
yeah.
through. It's like the classic one is the Republican argument is like, oh, all Democrats or anybody who wants abortion loves killing babies. I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, seriously, right? The other side is it's like, oh, all Republicans want to control women, right? They want to control their bodies. And I'm like, okay, there's probably some middle ground in there.
Everything's got middle ground, right? And we've talked about that. It's
Yeah.
very possible to strongly believe in both of the things you just said, and still have a
Yeah.
decision one way or the other, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and
but
it's super hard, and it's because everything is so nuanced and so situational.
everyone wants to simplify it to a basic black and white, yes or no,
Yeah,
good
right.
and bad, and that means that you have to have one metric,
Yeah,
right? One metric to judge good and bad, and
yeah,
that's tough when there's five metrics or two metrics or 12 metrics involved, right?
exactly.
and
It's
and
hard.
and
You
and
can,
that's when you have like a hierarchy of principles that you have to weigh. So this metric I'll weigh more than this metric or than this metric over
yeah, right.
here, and then
Yeah,
and that's why you always end up with compromise, which sucks,
yeah,
but you always end up with compromise, right? You,
yeah. I mean, in my mind, I mean, the way I view it is like, look, it's not all about the mom, and it's not all about the baby. It's about you got to put both of them together. You can't just say it's just solely one because that's
well,
just because they're both people. They're both
but
humans.
I think one of the things we always forget is a solution is always a compromise. You have to give up
Always.
something. You have to give up
Well,
something to
yeah,
get
yeah. You
something,
got to make a choice, bad or worse, right? I mean, okay, I'll take the
or
bad choice
or
this time,
bad
I
or
guess.
bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I consider uh, most elections of anyone anymore. It's bad and bad.
Yeah. Yeah, which is so interesting because I would think most of the time, people are typically not voting for the person they want. They're more likely voting against the other person.
That's sad. It really is.
It is
It's
sad. I
sad.
know. It is sad. Yeah, crazy. But anyways, this is boring right now, actually.
Okay.
So let me tell you something, Elon. I heard Elon Musk say something, and I got a little bit like convicted. So he was talking about first principles and solving world problems and all this other sort of stuff. And he was saying that there's a lot of really smart people out there trying to solve problems like how to get people to click on email links. And he was kind of, you're bad. He didn't say you're bad, but he's like, what I wish you would do is take all that brain power and actually solve real problems that would move humanity forward. And I'm like, oh crap, that's what I'm trying to do is solve how to get people to how to hijack their dopamine to get them to click on the email link.
Hmm.
So I started thinking maybe I need to start maybe with that maybe I need to start solving more important problems, you know?
Yeah. Why not?
Well, the thing is because getting people to click on email links pays really, really well, you know?
Hmm. But then you're prioritizing your money as the metric you want to measure.
I know. And then I'm really starting to think about that. Well, maybe there's a way that I can get, add a little more value to society and still make good money. I'm not saying no money. I'm not saying this, but maybe just tweak them a little bit.
Well, honestly, it's like you were talking about potentially, was it getting on the AI board at the local college or something like that?
Yeah.
Those are all things that I think add value, right?
Yeah.
Because you get involved in bringing AI to the masses so they understand it, so they're not as upset by it or whatever. And I don't know that you're going to get money directly from that. However,
No.
the
What you do,
connections that come from that,
yeah, yeah.
your visibility to others, the fact that people might think of coming to you with questions and the like, would put you in a better situation to have impact and probably make money at the same time.
That's called power. Right? You get power. You get
Influence,
influence.
yeah, influence.
Which means money comes from, you get connected to the right people.
It
So
doesn't
here's another
it doesn't
thing.
have to, but honestly, it often does, and I think you'd be silly to ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. So here's another thing. So I got this thing. I don't know if you let me show you this kit, Chris. So this is what's this thing called? I can't remember. It's a Raspberry Pi. And it's like a high-end Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
And so this is what I'm gonna make. I'm gonna try to make it. We'll see if I can make it or not. It's gonna be a cat toy because we got two male orange cats in the house, and both of them think they're the alpha. And so when you have two cats that think they're the alpha, or two people that think that, you're going to have conflict, right? I mean, it's just sort of natural. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to drain their energy. So I'm going to make an AI-based cat toy that will identify each of the three cats in the house. And I can actually run a model on this edge device that's completely off the internet, that you build a model once, and AIs tell me that, oh, this could be actually valuable for all sorts of other things. You wouldn't even have to connect to the internet to evaluate emails. There's a lot of things these little baby models can do that isn't the full power. And so literally for like $200, you can buy this computer, plus it'd be some setup fee. But I could run this thing, no monthly fee, and the data is 100% contained. It's not going up into the cloud. So already I'm starting to think in terms of, oh, that's a whole different direction.
So you're going to run one of the models off it, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, no, it's like, it's called like AI Edge. I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's technology through Google. You can train these models and run it. It'll detect what cat it is. And then basically I'm going to learn that cat's behavior, and the model is going to tune based upon what that cat likes. And so it's going to play with the cat in a way that it wants. And so then it's all going to tie into dopamine because cats have dopamine just like humans. And so I'm going to literally try to manipulate my cat's dopamine, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to let it win all the time, because it'll stop playing because it's too easy. But you don't want to let it lose all the time, because then it won't play anymore. So it's got to be just the right balance, just the right tease, just like Las Vegas. Ultimately the house is going to win every single time, but it's got to give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while. You've got to win a little jackpot here and there. And so I think what I'm going to try to do to learn AI and electronics is try to tune this thing to perfectly entertain my cats, basically hijack their dopamine loop. And then if I can get this principle there, they're saying it is so easy to get hacking people in opening emails with specials or whatever. And it's like AI with even simple models, you can predict basically when people open it, how long they stay on the email, when they click the link to actually gather this data, how likely they are to quit. And so right before they quit, you send them a bounce back coupon to jack up their dopamine. So now I'm thinking about marketing in terms of dopamine and arousal and interest and attention instead of these classic marketing techniques. So this is what I'm trying to learn from the underlying physics. I'm trying to go down to the underlying first principles of how this stuff works. And whether you're trying to jack with my cat's dopamine or a person surfing the web, dopamine's dopamine, man. It'll just learn.
2 weekends ago, I went to Huracan's event that he held. Huracan is the president of our Toastmasters group, and he was doing a leadership course. And I went to Tony's also in our Toastmasters group, his the week before. And then 2 weeks ago, Jamar and I went to Huracan's. And, cool. He was talking about growth and overcoming, barriers and the like. But, now I know lost my train of thought. Because something you said triggered me to think that.
Dopamine. Was it anything to do with dopamine? Motivation?
I'm sure it had to do with it, but I lost the thread. So
brain fart. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, well, it happens as we get older too. So right.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
It'll come back later. But anyway.
So that's my path forward. So that's why I've fiddled with AIs, with the chatbots, Now I'm like, now I want to literally build it and understand it,
Oh, I know. I was thinking.
trying to get down to first principles as much as possible. I said, when you do that, now you'll be able to solve problems 10 times as hard because
Well,
you understand the underlying principles.
so Jamar, who's also been on our show, was talking about the goal everyone wants to get to is to be significant. And
Yeah.
he had like
To
three
be seen.
S's. He had three S's. He had you need to survive,
Yeah.
you need to succeed, and then you
Yeah.
need significance. Right. And
Yeah.
he had those like layers, right? And I
Yeah.
was thinking about how most of the problems that we get with people getting so angry today are really about survive. They're just in kind of
Yeah.
survival mode. And
Yeah.
it's so
Right.
easy to trigger people to fear and to be in survival mode.
Yeah.
When what we really want them to do is to be in a success and even a significance kind of a mindset,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what I was thinking about was one of the things, how do you use dopamine to trigger people towards a positive goal? So
Yeah.
depending on what you're trying to sell them, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, what are you trying to get them to pay attention to? And
Yeah.
how do
Right.
you get them to pay attention? And how do you get them to associate the positive dopamine feeling with something that's actually good for them?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right. And so
Yeah.
you could easily take the same things you're learning about people and give them, I don't know, positive messaging or whatever it is that you think might actually,
Yeah.
how do we get them to think critically? How do we get them to
Yeah.
default to think critically? Because,
Yeah.
before you click no on this, have you thought about blank, blank, and blank? And you try to get the mind triggering on thinking or whatever. I don't know what that is because I think part of the problem with all the discussion we have is that people who understand the way we think get it right away. The problem is how do I get the people who aren't quite there to default to that, right? I did this speech today on semantics. I did one a while back on steel manning and trying to understand the logic of other people. And
Yeah.
and I think really it's difficult if you're not of a mindset to be curious about why someone thinks the way they do. You default to judgment. And how do I withhold judgment and stay in curiosity?
Yeah. Um, that's a different level of skill. I'm going down to more of the primitive brain. So for instance, like one of my challenges, and I think your challenge too, is we think and it's fun to think and build cool plans, but our execution skills are typically pretty low, right? Um, and so I'm learning how to hack that because what you have to do is you kind of have to lie to your brain and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do the whole task, but what I'm going to do is just one little tiny baby step." And then you just do that because it's easy, and you get a little tiny bit of dopamine hit. Because what your brain does, dopamine is a pursuit drug. So what it means is if you're at point A and you're going to point B, if your brain sees the fact that, hey, I'm making progress to point B, like real progress, it'll give you a little drug. It'll give you a little boost. It's like, yeah, go that direction, actually. If you're going the wrong direction, then it literally, you don't get that dopamine and it starts to become painful, actually. But here's the cool thing is the more pain that you go through and then figure it out, now you get a really big dopamine hit. So there's no getting around the suffering part.
Well, and that's part of what I think our difficulty is that the concept of hard work
Yeah.
was that doing something that was hard had value, not just
Yes.
because of the output of the hard work, but because
Yeah.
of the change made to you in doing
Yeah.
the hard work.
Right. Right. It literally transformed you. That's why jujitsu, I brought it up again, is so important
Wow, I
because
haven't heard
jujitsu,
that mentioned in a couple of weeks. That's wow.
I know a couple of weeks, because it's hard, right? And it's physically taxing and it just breaks your ego down, right?
Actually, I
And
actually
then
brought it up yesterday.
there you go. And
We're-
it's
yeah. We're-
and it's like, Chris, I can't believe you're not going there training because Alan, he's a coral belt, right? There's maybe 20 or 30 in the whole world like him, and you have him like right there in small classes. Actually, dude, you got to go. That'll going to jiu-jitsu will teach you everything about everything. There's nothing that jiu-jitsu won't solve because it's hard and it's
Yep.
frustrating. And
But
then finally, you break through, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I see the errors in my ways. And it's some of the things are so non-intuitive. You'd never figure them out on your own.
some of the things are so non-intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Flesh that out.
Like, okay, like an example, like let's say you're in the guard, you're on the bottom.
Okay.
Most people think that if you're on the bottom, you're in trouble.
Okay.
Not if you know jujitsu, because there's a bunch of attacks I can launch, right? I can choke you with my legs by using a triangle choke, and it's a series of steps that you would probably never figure it out. But it's like in literally 2 to 3 seconds, if you know the techniques, the guy on top of you is asleep, and you're underneath. And it's like, whoa, I never would have seen that path forward. And it's hard, but it's like, man, oh man, does it work? So that's just one example. That's one fleshing it out.
Okay.
And the only reason he knows it is because his master taught him that. And they figured this thing out over 100 years ago. The Japanese guy brought it over, and the Brazilians just through many, many fights and just over 100 years, they're just like, oh, we see this pattern. Let's try this. And it's like around and around you go, just like the SEALs learn, right? Every time they go into combat, they come back and they do a debrief and they say, wait a minute, 2 of our guys died. What happened? Let's like really spend hours figuring out what went wrong.
You said earlier, so we were talking about 2 alpha males. You're talking about the cats, and you're saying like
Yeah, 2
alpha
cats,
males, right? How would you quantify special forces people? Are they all alphas or are they all something else? Because they all have to work together with different levels of competency, and how would you characterize them?
Freaks of nature. And heavily alpha. But here's the thing, Chris. When they're together on a mission, they would die for each other. They would love each other like nobody's business.
But that doesn't, okay, I get that, but that isn't what makes them an alpha, right? Dying for each other to me isn't what makes you an alpha. And the reason why I'm saying this is normally our the way we're thinking, we know this is now wrong, is that the alpha male is the one in charge. Right? We now know with the studies of wolves and stuff that the pack leader is often not the alpha, but the beta or a different one, right? Usually the smartest one ends up being the leader in those groups, and the biggest ones end up defending the leader.
I don't know about that.
So the idea of the alpha male in the wolf setting, right? And when it came about with a lot of research, and apparently the man who did the research spent the rest of his life trying to teach people that the popularized view is wrong. Basically, the largest wolf in the pack may be the alpha and the strongest, but he is not, in fact, the strongest is not the alpha. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get. So the idea was like the strongest one was like more the enforcer, and the wisest one, I guess you would say, maybe is, I'm not sure if that's the right way to quantify it, would be the one who was the leader. And the alpha made sure that the leader, not the alpha, the biggest one always made sure that the leader was the one in charge, and everyone listened and deferred to them.
Well, that kind of makes sense. Like think in terms of football. It's like the quarterback is sort of the brain of the thing.
Yeah, well,
and everybody else is like their mission is protect the quarterback, right? Because if he goes down, we lose.
Well, do you remember when the Lakers here, when we had Shaq and Kobe on the same team, and they were button heads in the early days? I mean, they were both kind of the head of the team, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I'm wondering that is one of the things that I've always found interesting about special forces or any kind of specialist team, and it doesn't have to be military or not. Generally speaking, everyone's highly competent. Everyone is highly aligned in goals. But at the end of the day, they know who's better at what than him. That guy's better than me at this. I'm better than him at this. And they defer to each other's expertise without ego getting involved.
Well, yeah, as much as they can. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So basically, I know that you're a better computer guy than I'm at. So I'm gonna, and I may be competent at it, but that doesn't mean I'm as good as you. So I will defer to your judgment.
Yeah.
In situations of that. And so I find that those teams are very interesting because they're very flat in structure as opposed to hierarchical. Yeah. And I think that's the goal we want.
There's always a leader.
Right. That's the goal we kind of want in today's world is we want a leader, but we want everyone to be kind of equal amongst the team. So you don't have a deep structure, but you have an understanding of who's good at what. Right. Everyone's competent, but who's really good at what? And then we defer to those people because they're good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that typically, and there's tremendous trust. And so basically they drill that into them from the very beginning. It's like you will fail if you go by yourself and you will win if you support your
Well,
team. So it's like the team is more important than the individual.
so trust is, your psychological safety, all that stuff, right? And it doesn't matter how harsh the environment is. If you feel safe in that environment,
Yeah.
right, then it's a good environment for building bonding and the like. Because
Yeah.
I kind of think of like locker room humor and guys making fun of each other and all that kind of stuff, and yet at the end of the day they're a team, and
They're a team.
when they're facing anyone else, they're rock solid as a team, although
Oh,
internally
absolutely.
they might be ribbing each other and doing all kinds of stuff.
All the time, nonstop. It's like nonstop. But yeah, when they go on mission, man, it's just like a flip, like a switch gets flipped. They are just, you don't want to be on the wrong side of them, basically.
But I think that's kind of what we want with all of our corporate teams too, right? Our companies. We want our teams to kind of have that ability when they're working, they are so focused and aligned in getting stuff done that the arguments
Yeah.
between them don't really rise up when you're working on stuff. That would be
No,
the
no,
ideal, right? I'm not saying that we do that, but I mean that's kind of like the ideal.
no. Yeah, no, that's the ideal. Yeah, that's exactly. I know this one like SEAL was talking about. He was talking about basically it's almost becomes like a faith thing. It's like they're so that basically they just don't quit. And he goes, basically we're psycho. We're literally insane actually because we believe so strongly. And it's like his heart would be beating so much. He's like, I felt like I may die if I take one more step in a run. And he's like, who cares? If I die, I die. And I'll take the step.
But that's
So
where
he says,
that's where
yeah,
Goggins says that when you think when you think you're exhausted and your body's exhausted, you're only at 40% of your capability,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, exactly. And here's the part. He goes, when you get 25 of us together, the true believers, and we're all on one mission, we literally can put a dent in the universe at that point. And I'm like, okay, that's freaking scary.
When you I'm sorry, when you said true believers, I went to the opposite spectrum on that.
Yeah, yeah, okay. But of course,
You could say the same thing for true believers on the other side of that too.
it doesn't matter, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like if you believe it, you believe that is the answer, right? You are sent by God to fix this problem. Yeah, and that's why a lot of them get tweaked, right? A lot of them come back. I heard Sean Ryan mention this, who's a SEAL. He's got a great talk. He says, when I was in the SEAL teams, I thought we were doing the right things. And then when I kind of got back, I started thinking of it. And I think maybe we didn't do the right things. Maybe we were blowing shit up and doing stuff that we shouldn't have been doing. And then they have this horrific like turmoil inside of themselves. Because like I thought we were doing the right thing, but now I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, I think this is the interesting dichotomy of being a person, right? You need to be self-aware enough to question what you do and why you do it. But
Yeah, right.
you also need to get in the mindset of getting stuff done, which means quite often you probably have to accept things that if you had more time to think about, you might question.
Oh my gosh, yeah, but you don't have time to think about it,
Well,
right?
or the importance of getting it done overrides any kind of moral, I don't say moral judgment, but any kind of judgment you might have to put onto it until a later
Yeah,
date, right?
yeah,
And that's, I think, part of the problem we have today is like we start questioning morals and purpose and all immediately before we get anything done, and so nothing gets done. It would
yeah,
almost be better to make the wrong decision and do something and then question it after than just never do anything.
yeah, yeah. It's still hard though. Like I've heard cases where, a sniper may be protecting something called Overwatch, protecting a group of his fellow people, and there'll be a 14-year-old with an RPG that's going to hurt them, and he'll kill him, right? And he's like, I don't want to kill a kid, but those guys are going to die if I don't do it. So,
Yeah, but
man, I mean,
I'm not thinking of those types of life or death situations. I'm thinking of like, a company needs to make a decision, and no one wants to be on the hook for making a decision, so they just don't make a
yeah,
decision. And what ends up happening is that they're forced a year later to make a decision, and they're in a much worse situation than even if they'd made the
yeah,
wrong decision in the first place,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, conceptually, once you're moving, even if you're moving in a direction that isn't quite right, at least you got momentum. You could hopefully
at
course
least
correct at that point,
you can steer
right?
the
I
rudder
mean,
work.
yeah. So this is why while I would love to get the right answer the first time, maybe it's better just to get some answers out there, even if they're wrong.
Always, always. In fact, this Grok thing is always pushing me. Just go, just go. You got to move. You got to build something. You got to burn up a resistor. You got to do that. You're going to burn up a bunch of Arduinos. You're going to do that. But it goes that process of failing and then learning is way faster than thinking about it. And typically, that curse, the smarter you are, the more you have that curse. Actually.
Yeah. So I don't know about you. My problem is I don't have any one thing that I want to accomplish so much using AI or anything that I can say that's where I'm going to put my energy. So I end up putting my energy everywhere, right? I research everything. I go into all kinds of stuff. I'm learning a lot. I think it's great. I think I now know a lot. I have a lot of capabilities and tools to get stuff done, but I don't have a specific goal of what I want to get done. And that's the problem.
That's why you got to work for somebody else, because they'll give you that goal. They're like, this is what I want you to go. This is the mission.
Well, and honestly, that's so from a professional perspective, I got that covered through work, right?
Yeah.
But I still think there's got to be a personal thing that I want to do, and I think honestly, I feel like it's a waste not to do something with what I know.
Well, yeah, okay, so build something. Remember, this is like we're going back to episode number 1.
Yeah. So my question is, what do I want? What do I think is worth the time to put into it? And that's it, right? And by worth the time is like that either I or others will benefit enough of that it makes sense to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's what I finally come up with, Chris. So I have this in Infinity for electronics, making things. I got a CNC in the background. And I'm like, now with AI, everything clicked together. And basically, Grok told me, listen, if you go do your hardware, it's going to be fun for you, but at the same time, you're learning, and it's going to be directly applicable to your core business. And so now I feel for the first time, Chris, everything like connects. Everything makes sense. Like everything feeds the other part of it. Everything's synergistic.
So these electronics, these things that you're building, how is that feeding into your profit trigger business?
Because it's helping me understand AI at a hardware level, at a first principles level. Because with software, you're so abstracted up.
So why would understanding it, the hardware, be something you need?
Well, you don't need it, but it helps solve things. So, for instance, if you're having a square wave, right, or if you're having AI try to predict whether it's a cat or a bird, right? That down at the perceptron level is basically hardware. It's going down to resistors and capacitors, and it's built up from that. And so there's noise in the system, and that noise follows all the way up through the software. But if you understand the essence of that noise, now I know in software there's noise in there. I know it because the noise is in the hardware. And now I know to look for the noise, and now I know how to measure it. And it may not be measured with an oscilloscope or a meter, but there's other tools where I can measure that noise. But I know it's there, and I know it's going to affect my decision up front. So I'm not confused about why did it choose a bird? Why did it label this a bird versus a cat?
Okay, I get that, and that helps you understand the way it works. And
yes, right.
From an abstracted way, if you understand the way it works, you can optimize for it better downstream or upstream or whichever direction we're going from it.
We'll abstract it up at your level.
But my question would be, where that skill really seems valuable to me is that once you understand that, then you just apply it to software. And it's not what software or what end product you're going for, which is your company's marketing tools, but it's like, you can add value to every software by understanding the way the hardware works.
Well, that's what I thought I just said, but maybe I
didn't
say
my question is, that seems like a lot of work to go to just to do your little piece of the software, as opposed to why don't you just offer this service to software in general?
Because I don't know how it connects. I may do that because when I bought this kit and I realized that I could run a localized AI model completely off the cloud on a $200 computer, all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow, that could open up a whole new market. Nobody else is doing it.
That's got nothing. I don't say it's nothing, but nothing I can immediately see related to the business you've been building for the past year.
No, it's the same problem because being able to predict what the cat's going to do before it knows what it's going to do means that I can predict when somebody's going to drop off an email list, and I'm going to send them a bounce back coupon based upon their behavior. It's the same thing. So I'm training this cat thing to understand how that
So
cat
then
works.
is the benefit you're bringing to the world that you understand how things work, so now you can make a better marketing software AI?
Yes,
Or
yes,
is the value you bring to the world, you understand how hardware works, you can make every software better?
yes, 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 and yes.
Because those don't seem like the same business to me.
Hmm.
One you've picked okay, I'm not trying to talk you out of this. I'm trying to figure out the value statement in the effort you're putting into learning this stuff.
Yeah.
Is it's such a broad base to understand. It's such a core principle thing to understand. And you seem to be applying it in a very small area.
Yeah, because everything's built from that. It's a first principle. That's why you can get a better answer if you understand first principles.
I think there's something in the way I'm thinking about this that feels like it's your solution. The thing you're solving for is small scale, considering how big and broad your base understanding is.
I mean, it could be. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, if you can shred the argument, please.
Well, okay. I'm gonna get a little grand on this and say, let's say you figure out what causes cancer and how to cure cancer,
Okay.
and you go and you figure out just how to cure skin cancer. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to say just because obviously learning how to, just curing skin cancer would be a pretty massive thing. But you understand what I'm saying is you now understand how cancer works and you can cure all of it, but you decide to concentrate on that.
Okay.
All right,
Great.
and so a lot of this, I got assumptions going on. I'm limiting the scope of your solution. I'm doing all kinds of things in my head here, right? So you can
Yeah.
take those things apart. But that's kind of the feeling I get is like you're building this grandiose understanding of the way the world works, and you're just going, and I'm going to make this little thing here. Is the way it feels. So
Yeah, because that's the way business works. Because if you try to solve everybody's problem,
okay,
nothing happens. You
okay.
got to niche
So
down
so this
on
is really aligned towards. I want a successful business that makes money, so I'm going to find the niche, and then I'm just going to understand. So it's not about everything I can do; it's what I can do for this solution. Is what you're saying.
for this market segment. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I've got a lot of background in that market segment.
Yeah.
I
So
understand.
when I look at it, I'm like, you're building an understanding of the world by going to first principles on this, and
Yes.
then you're applying it to here, and it feels like all that effort you went into, you could do this, but you're doing this. It's kind of the way it feels to me.
Well, yeah, but that's what Musk does. I mean, he has one company that launches rockets. He has another one that does satellites. He has another one that builds AI. But all of his different things, they all kind of link together. They weave and feed each other, you know? The AI company feeds it feeds the car, it feeds the Tesla, the satellite,
Well, the
or
batteries
battle.
especially, right? Batteries
Yeah.
feed it all. What's going on with this boring company? Is that still around?
I don't know anything about that actually.
I was just thinking about where that fits in, and I'm like, if you are going to build colonies on Mars, being able to build underground tunnels makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Apparently he's going to be going to the moon in less than a year or something. I don't know.
Well, that new
Um,
rocket they got, yeah, apparently, most powerful booster ever. So
Yeah, apparently.
yeah.
But it also, Chris, the reason it works for me is because this is my interest. It's like the thought of building something, experimenting and learning and curiosity is now what I would normally do and just think. Now I can thinking and actually get to build something that could make money. So in my mind, everything is linked now together.
Okay.
And now that's why I'm coming back to our first thing is that, man, but I'm not taking good notes. So if I could truly get this multiplier, like let's say it's a 10x increase. If I take good notes and build a second brain, that could 10x is a massive
Well, so
increase.
just think of this. So you're talking about you want to understand how transformers work. You want to understand how to build an offline trained model that does certain types of recognition and ability. Right? So you want to do all those things. So every note that you create, you're able to link it. So this is an AI related thing. This is an edge device. This is an offline whatever. You can put all these notes in there, and then in a month's time or 2 months time, you go back and go, okay, so what was I talking about a month ago when I was talking about how these things tie together? And let's do a search on that. It goes, oh, so I was talking about this, and I was talking about that. I was talking about my company. I was talking about this, but now this just you're able to put in. One of the things that always amazed me when we think of all these, big thinkers in the past is they sat down and they thought about big things, right?
Yeah,
And
they
they
connect.
were able to connect different thoughts across time and to come up
Yeah,
with more complex ideas and frameworks and whatever you want to call it. They were able to put that together. And I think
yeah,
we live in such a short-term now mentality. It's tough for us to break out of that. So note taking is one of the ways to do that, right? We don't sit around just in our own thoughts for hours a day
yes,
generally, right? I tried to do that for a little bit every day, but generally we're not like these people who had these minds that were going everywhere and doing that.
yeah,
And so what you need to do is you need a way to accelerate your ability to do that. And I think the note
yeah,
taking is that way to do that. So
yeah, yeah.
lowering the
That makes sense.
friction to where you can take a note in seconds so
Yeah,
that you don't lose the train of thought. Because this is the thing I'm going on, right? And this is why I do love doing this through any of the AI tools. Is
yeah,
I'm talking through an idea with Claude or with Grok or whomever, and I
yeah,
say, "Wait, I got a thought. Your response was really cool. And, Grok, your response is really cool, and it made me think of something else. Take a note
yeah,
of this. I
yeah,
want to go into that later. Now,
yeah,
back to what I was talking about, right?
yeah.
Because what'll happen is, your mind is thinking of 4 or 5 other things. And how many times do I interrupt you with a separate thought when you're talking, and vice versa, right? So,
Too many.
so if we started taking notes of that, maybe it wouldn't get lost, right?
Yeah, well, and you see really good debaters do that. They'll listen, and you could literally see them writing down, okay,
Yeah.
this, and then they literally construct
Well,
a little
this
reply
is how we
based
do
on that.
feedback on speeches, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
will listen and I'll note this down or that down. Something specific you said that I thought was very good, or that struck me as really cool, or the way you said something, or the way the audience reacted to something you said.
yeah.
Um, you know, I'm not going to remember those things off the top of my head. I need
No,
something to
right.
trigger that thought, right?
Yeah,
And
and I'm doing it right now. Like I'm taking my little notes. I'm just writing down little key points. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just little
well,
things.
I've gone back when I'm doing evaluations of feedback for speeches for Toastmasters. Is I write them down on note cards, and I'll
Yeah,
write
yeah.
down intro, body, close, gestures, and all, and then I'll take a picture of it and I'll text it to the person and say, here's your feedback,
There you go. Nice.
right?
That's good. That's good.
Because to me, it's writing it down. And now some people are good at typing, and
Yeah.
and they do notes that way. And maybe I should start doing that. Just go ahead and set up a separate Obsidian file with just feedback to this stuff. That would be interesting.
You can. Now, here's what Grok said, though. He said typically you want to have a notebook with you, is usually the best way to do it because it lets you slow down because the writing is so slow. It forces you to think more, which I think is so interesting.
And you want a good notebook. You want a notebook that you want to write in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I love this paper. It's like this is like a good notebook, but it's like a dot grid thing. It's like I don't know, $8 for this little grid thing, and I got to get just the right pen, and now I'm happy pappy. And then what I do, Chris, here, I don't know if you can see it on camera. You can't. So I have this little thing. This is like my processing bucket. I'll just dump my notes in here, and every few days I'll just go through and actually type them in or put them in. It's like sort of a to do list, a to do bucket.
My wife went to Japan, and Japan loves office supplies. They have really
There
cool
you
office
go.
supplies. So
Nice.
I've got this pen. It's a brown pen that writes in brown ink, which I love.
Oh, very
I've
cool.
got a little leather notebook with a
There
pen
you go.
holder, and then of course you can change the notebook inside. They have so many different kinds you can put in here. But I just love the idea of having something tactile, leather. It's just it makes me want to write into it, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. So I think what I'm going to do is, so what Grok said, even if you don't use Obsidian and all this fancy stuff, use it later, but just get it down on paper.
so if you actually
That's it.
do you tie your Claude to Obsidian or your chat to Obsidian, and you should be
Yeah,
able to do those. Grok won't do it because it doesn't run a local server. Um, but I'm sure there's ways to do it. But Claude is the easiest. If you set up Claude to do that, and you could take a picture, right? So you could write in your notebook, take a picture, send it to Claude, and say, okay, make an Obsidian note for this.
there you go. Okay, cool. I'm going to start playing with that. Maybe not now though, because I got other stuff to do.
It
But
took
right
me
now,
it took me 30 minutes, not knowing what I was doing, setting up Obsidian. So
yeah. But here's the thing. I just feel like it's a distraction, right? I just got to get it out on paper. Step one, because that's my big thing. I don't even write it down at all. So step one
um,
is on paper.
the other thing you might consider then is Rocketbook.
What's that?
It's an erasable notebook you write on, but it has a little barcode in the bottom, a QR code, and when you take a picture of it, it routes it to an email or to a inbox or the
Oh,
like,
interesting.
and then you have a digital copy of it in that system. So you
Oh,
could set that
interesting.
up easily, and then put it in a drive and then let the stuff read it off that drive. So
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I think what I'm gonna do first though, I'm gonna do paper, then I'm gonna do your technique of having Grok summarize my conversations
yeah, I can
and
send you
then
my
just
prompt
copy
if
them
you
out.
want. If you want the prompt, I'll send you the prompt. But see here,
Yeah, email it to me.
this has the little QR code in the
Oh,
corner,
uh-huh.
and then
What's that called? Hang on. What's it? Let me write it down.
Rocketbook. They make different size notebooks and stuff, and it uses those erasable pens.
Okay.
And you just take a wet towel and you wipe it off when you're done, and then you can do the next one. So
Hmm.
it's a little more bio friendly in that sense.
Yeah, I got you. Cool.
It's a high tech physical notebook. So,
That's pretty cool. That is awesome.
but anyway,
All
yeah.
right, Chris.
All right, we're an hour and
Anything
a half
else? Are
in.
we
I think
about
we're
wrapped
good.
up?
I think we're good for now.
Okay.
If anyone wants us to talk about something in particular, let us know.
Yeah, leave
Hopefully we
comment.
didn't bore you too much with all our AI talk, but
Yeah, it seems like it's going in the AI direction. But that's where the world's going right now.
but
There's a lot of resources being dumped on AI.
I think critical thinking is what you use. I mean, one of the things that in the new job I've got, they're training us how to use AI, and all the training is the stuff we've been talking about. It's context, it's the role, it's the expected output, it's the examples, it's all that sort of thing,
Yeah.
and that takes critical thinking. If you just sit down and think, what do I want to get out of an AI interaction? That takes
Yeah.
a little bit of thinking. Thinking
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you can use AI to help do that actually. Like I all the time, I'll go in voice mode and then I'll summarize and it said, now here's the prompt, dump this into heavy, and then dump the output of heavy back in, and then we can talk about it.
and does it do the dumping for you, or do you have to do it?
No, I have to manually copy and paste. Eventually it will. Eventually it will do that.
It'd be
But
nice if,
right now,
if you could have it trigger the other thought process and come back. That'd be cool.
that'd be so awesome. Yeah, that'd be super
So
cool.
now, if you were to create a MCP server that connected all the different LLMs, that'd be cool. I think if you did it through N8N and said, "Hey, here's my prompt. Start with Grok. Go to Claude. Go to whatever. Go to and have it actually
Yeah.
do that. That would be cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's some power. That's crazy.
Think about running it through three different AIs that are getting progressively more specific in the output. That would be really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I wonder
So
how.
this is crazy.
I wonder what would happen if you literally had like 3 or 4 of these and you just had to go around in a circle like 10 times, 100 times. What would come out?
I don't know. I may try that. That's so
Because
interesting.
once you've connected it once, you could just say, okay, now I want you to run this over and over 10 iterations or whatever, and tell me what comes out.
Yeah, that's kind of what Grok 4 Heavy does in some sense. Not. It doesn't iterate like that, but it spawns multiple agents, and they literally argue and communicate and
Yeah.
give each other secrets, and then a summary one says, okay, this is sort of the summary at the very
But
end.
you take that, then you go over to Claude and tell it to polish it up. Then you take that
Yeah.
out of there and you run that back through Perplexity or Chat to get some input on it. And then you run it
Yeah.
through Grok Heavy again. And then you go through Claude again. And just kind of run that cycle 3 or 4 times. I wonder what it would look like over time.
You would get something very interesting. I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna take a note of that. Like I don't know what I'm gonna call that. Like I'm gonna call it loop.
Is that a recursive loop? A recursive loop of AI thought?
Yeah, you'd have to set a breakpoint. You have to say, okay, do it 3 times.
Yeah, do it 3
it 10
times.
times.
Because I've often thought it'd be really interesting if you and I created our own avatars, or you created 2 of your own avatars and just had them talk.
Yeah, you would get you'd get some new insight that you probably wouldn't have thought of before.
Yeah, it'll harp on something that wouldn't have thought of harping on, and said,
Yeah,
"Wow, why are we
right.
Why is it harping on that?
Yeah,
What?"
why is it harping on that? What maybe there's a thread. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just hallucinating, but maybe there's actually something there
Yeah,
to consider.
it'll go off on Jiu-Jitsu for the next 5 hours. So
Yeah, I gotta start I gotta start hooking it up like this. I gotta start doing some sort of automation because I think I've spent several hundred hours just talking and just typing with AI, but I need to start maybe connecting the dots in some way.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna stop recording here for now.
Okay.
So everyone, comment, like, subscribe, complain about whatever you want to complain about. The more you complain, the happier we get. I may not want to know what you're talking about, but the happier we'll get. So,
That's
and with
okay.
that,
Just if anybody makes a comment, just try to make some kind of sense, please, or whatever.
yeah. If you've got an opinion, make sure you give the premise of the opinion, because sometimes I will read those opinions and go, I don't know where you're coming from on that. So,
Yeah.
But feel free, comment all you like. Anything that you think will bring us further in our thinking, definitely. And with that,
Awesome.
I'm going to call it quits here. Thanks. Stop.
All right.